Hi. With Harsetti having approximately 1 day left on the banner, today I wanted to go over the different Harsetti builds I've used, my experience with Harsetti, and whether or not I think you should be pulling for Harsetti before she leaves and, well, we get another rerun or another character. So first and foremost, if you didn't know, Harsetti's on banner and she's alongside Roaming Warrior Leo. Not a great second character, but of course, that's not what this video is about. We're talking about Harsetti. However, I do want to mention, just as a quick preamble, Roaming Warrior Leo, not very good. So let's actually break down the kinds of Harsettis and what I think Harsetti has been used with or as currently. If you aren't familiar already, there are basically 2 or maybe 3 types of Harsettis that are currently in the game right now. There are the Harsettis that are more dedicated towards arena. There's the Harsettis that are more dedicated towards general use like PvP and things like that. And then there's the Guild War ones. The Guild War ones and the PvP, or rather the arena one specifically, overlap quite a bit. But as I'm sure you're seeing on screen right now, you might be a little bit confused by, well, the Harsetti that you're seeing right now. I thought, or you might be thinking to yourself that you thought Harsetti is a character who's supposed to be base speed. Well, you could be right, and there is definitely an argument for Harsetti being super slow, but there is also a pretty decent reason for you to also use Harsetti as speed if you're someone that can't stand all the different slow play compositions that are used right now, and if you can't afford to ban Harsetti as one of your extra pre-bans. Now, to be clear, I've definitely found that Harsetti on injury was actually one of the better variations and builds that I ended up using, specifically because that allows you to pick her into some slow team compositions. And although Harsetti in general has been seen to be very poor against very slow teams, and actually, if you aren't familiar with it already, there are plenty of people who, if you haven't seen, are building their characters super slow to kind of accommodate for Harsetti being super slow, or making all of your stats basically irrelevant. And therefore you have some builds like the Death Dealer Ray that you're seeing right now on screen, and I'm going to move my camera so you can actually take a look at what this looks like. As you see right now, one of my Ray builds, my second Ray is at 267 for cleave, or formerly when I cleaved, and now I have my Death Dealer Ray build, which is super tanky and slow, 124 base speed. However, with that, I do want to say that personally, I have not found there to be a definitive one-size-fit-all Harsetti build. Part of the reason why, in my opinion, characters like Harsetti are so insane and so powerful right now is specifically because they follow this same paradigm as a character like Angel of Light. They follow a similar paradigm to characters like Aiden. Part of the reason that these characters are so strong is because you don't know what build they're on. You don't know if they're fast. You don't know if they're on Secret Storm. You don't know if they're on Spirit's Breath, Book, Proof of Valor. Are they super tanky? Are they faster than you? All these things contribute to a character being extremely strong, and that's a trait that is shared by Harsetti. Now, today, I didn't only want to talk about Harsetti as a figurative or a conceptual character. I also wanted to kind of talk to you about my experience with her, not just in arena or not just in RTA or just in general, but specifically for arena, because personally, that's what I've been spending the most amount of time with. Not to like flex or, really talk much about this, but I had seen a couple comments talking about the fact that like, oh, why is this guy talking about E7 when he doesn't play the game? This is not supposed to be a flex, right? Like being like low top of 100, like just outside of like top 50 for legend in arena is not like the most insane credentials, to be clear. But I just wanted to dispel the myth that I don't play the game. Like I have been doing my guild wars. Like I'm not kicked out of my guild, and otherwise my guild would kick me out. And furthermore, I'm ranked 78 in arena. And regardless how you see or don't see this, it does mean I have to play the game a little bit, and I just wanted to get that out of the way because for some reason people don't believe that I'm playing the game or something. Like I've been playing, guys. Like I don't know what to say. Anyways, with that, I have been playing arena, and as you can see right now, who do you see on screen currently? It's none other than Harsetti, who honestly, I've seen a lot of people get really upset at and almost, if not actually, quit the game over it. Now, I'm here to talk to you specifically about my experience with Arena, because I think that's obviously one of the more relevant things for players that aren't super invested in RTA, and even more so, the RTA season isn't ending. So this is kind of where our stomping ground and the most important part of the game is right now. Now, I do want to say that although there's a lot of despair to be had specifically with Harsetti, I actually have found, and credit where credit is due, I found this specifically through another channel, a good friend of mine, Mori is what I like to call him, who has also made a video based on his experiences with trying to make Harsetti on defense kind of get run over and die. And well, I took some inspiration and used a couple of the techniques and the ideas behind some of his videos or some of the comps in his videos to kind of make this look as usable and as playable for me as possible in order to climb an arena. And this is what I landed on. Now, to be clear, there are a couple different variations of this, but if you're someone that is interested in how to deal with, someone like Harsetti right now in arena, this could be a decent answer for you. Now, the characters, unfortunately, in this team are kind of restrictive. There is an argument for you to, at times, replace someone like Senya or Arby with an Amiki, which is fine, but let me briefly explain the stats of the characters you're about to see and then explain how they work. So let's start with Abigail first. And as you see right now, my Abigail has roughly 160 effectiveness with Circus Fantasia, but otherwise is extremely tanky and her speed doesn't matter. This is obviously because of the fact that most Harsettis are going to manipulate the speed of your characters, so it's better to just be tanky. And realistically, we're not using really Abigail for anything but the occasional strip the BBK's S3 on the enemy team for immortality. So that's partially the reason why you want immortality, or rather effectiveness, but in some cases, Abigail doesn't even get to that point and she'll die. However, the real big thing here for Abigail is that with the change to her and the buff to her, now it reads that with her S2 at the start of turn, she curses, but when the ally in the back row except for the caster receives lethal damage, it consumes the current health, dispelling all debuffs from the target before granting immortality and vampirism for 1 turn. Now, this is significant for a couple reasons. Number one, because you are obviously going to get absolutely railed by this right side team, and in most cases, the AoE from a character like Bloodblade Karin, or the AoE from a character like a Yufian or a Candy, whoever you end up fighting, will inevitably activate the Bloodblade Karin. And at first, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Connor, you already have Senya, so like, who cares? You would be kind of right. However, you'd be surprised because sometimes your Senya will die really quickly, or in general, some things will die. But with the way that Bloodblade Karin's S2 passive interaction works, if Abigail is alive and Bloodblade Karin is sent to lethal health, Bloodblade Karin's immortality, her own personal immortality, will not be the one that gets activated first, and rather it is the Abigail's immortality that will get activated instead. Now, this isn't to say that you are replacing the initial Bloodblade Karin immortality that she has on her S2, because let's be clear, you start with 1 immortality at the beginning of the battle anyways, but it's the second one, specifically the upon receiving lethal damage grants immortality for 1 turn. This is the one that you are saving, and effectively you're giving yourself 3 immortalities with Bloodblade Karin specifically, which makes this a super insane composition. Let me not get too far ahead of myself though, but that's just the reason why you would have Abigail. The next character that we have here is, well, Dragonblade Senya, or Dragonbride Senya rather. And the reason why I like Dragonbride Senya specifically is because, well, interestingly again, she has another passive similar to Abigail, where in the backline, if someone receives enough damage, they dispel, they give a barrier, and she activates her really high damage S3. Now, personally, I didn't find anything but her health to really be relevant, and even her speed doesn't matter because, again, most of the time, this team composition is only being used against Harsetti. I repeat, if you're not using or fighting against a Harsetti specifically, you could get really messed up when using this team, but I have seen literally Harsetti 24/7, and we'll do a fight and see and, go over and review what it looks like, or what the next line of arena looks like. But, okay, max HP on the Senya. Her artifact kind of matters, but not really. I like 3F because it's cool, but you could run whatever you want. Now, the next character here is Arby. Now, the reason why Arby is here is because, truth be told, because his speed also doesn't matter, you actually have a character who's cheated out a decent amount of stats and also has a guaranteed, for the most part, guaranteed high damage AoE that you can cast onto the entire enemy team. When you pair this with Alexa's Basket, which is now a pretty high chance of either giving you attack buff or greater attack buff, this amount of damage that you end up dealing out or dishing out is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I do want to mention that if I'm not mistaken, there is a little bit of RNG. I'm not exactly sure what the RNG specifically is, but there is some RNG as for when the Ilanov, or for specifically who the Ilanov hits. I've noticed that 99% of the time it hits RB, but I've also had moments where it didn't hit RB. If I'm not mistaken, it's just supposed to be hitting like either of the dark units, or whoever has like the least amount of health between the dark units, but I've seen them do some weird fancy mechanics. Whatever the case is, ideally the goal here is for Arbiter Vildred to get hit. I apologize because I haven't been able to figure out exactly what the AI for this is. It's just something that evades me. One of you guys probably know what it is, and if you don't mind, if you are familiar with it, feel free to let me know in the comment section. But it should be that Ilanov targets the lowest total health target. That's dark specifically. But for whatever reason, sometimes it hits Bloodblade Karin. Okay, anyways, RB is just full DPS, and the final character here is the Bloodblade Karin. Now, unfortunately, the artifacts on the Bloodblade Karin and the Arbiter Vildred feel extremely, extremely important here. Now, some people will argue, hey, you know what? You could probably get yourself, I don't know, Wind Rider, or maybe you could get yourself Sword of Summer Twilight and have some value there, or even Hostess of the Banquet. But what I noticed specifically when trying to fight against a lot of these teams is that if I don't have an attack buff through some means, Bloodblade Karin will not kill. And that's just it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I didn't know how to kill off a lot of these enemies without it, but in all honesty, the ER that I even have on this team, or on this character, feels a bit wasted, because Harsetti most of the time ends up stunning me anyways. But I do have 100 effect resistance in case I get a random character try to provoke my BBK, but in most cases, no one gets to turn anyways, and they attack someone that isn't Bloodblade Karin. And in some cases, you can even get it cleansed with Dragon Bride Senya. But this is the Bloodblade Karin that I have. She needs to be very high damage. The EE specifically that I have is the one that gives me an extra lethal damage immortality, which is obviously like what's on our S2 passive, and that's why it says it here. But the idea behind here is to abuse 3 immortalities and guarantee yourself the Arbiter Vildred S3 with hopefully Alexis Basket, an attack buff. Guarantee yourself, hopefully, again, another huge AoE with Dragon Bride Senya's S3, and then finally the third big AoE with the Bloodblade Karin, who gives herself attack buff again, or Alexa's greater attack buff, specifically so you can one-shot everyone. Now, the team that you're seeing on screen right now might screw me up, might not, but this is what I found to be one of the best performing teams, and you might see a variation of this team that involves a Miki, but personally, I found that my Miki did not do enough damage, or it wasn't convincing enough for me, as opposed to just overwhelming the enemy with, well, 3 big AoEs. Let's get into it, specifically for describing how this looks, though. I don't think you'll find this to be super complicated or anything. Ooh, I guess I don't have sounds right now. Oh, I guess I just don't have sound, period. Well, anyways, imagine that the tune is on, but as you see here, Harsetti is using her S3. Again, this Harsetti specifically 27k HP, and on Abyssal Crown, by the way, just as a quick note, I do want to preface here that although it may seem tempting to just slam all of your skill 3 buttons here, this is not actually in most cases what you're supposed to do with this team, and was actually part of the reason why when I first tried testing this out, this character felt really, or this composition rather, felt really weak. I didn't learn until a little bit later on that you actually just have to play it by ear and wait until your allies are much lower before you guaranteed try to go for a kill. Now, specifically for this, I'm going to try and get the Bloodblade Karin lower, but as you'll see here in a moment, Ilanov should target, I believe it's the Arbiter Vildred, and because Arbiter Vildred ends up dying here, he cuts, he has Gab, and for the most part, you're generally able to kill most players on, or most characters in the team. Look, the Broman is dead, and now I don't even have to deal with that extra RNG. I've activated the Bloodblade Karin, and I don't think this will end up killing. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this guy will probably have his second one. Yeah, there's his second immortality, which is, again, by the way, what we're trying to abuse here. But the general idea here should be, okay, everyone dies, and I mean, well, this guy didn't kill, but even if Abigail ended up dying, we at least have a couple of extra kind of fail safes like, oh, okay, like we ended up dying because of you know we got AoE'd by Bloodblade Karin, but we have Abigail's huge extra cleanse, or we have Dragon Bride Senya's extra cleanse. And now that it looks like everyone's really low and about to die, this is when we can officially commit to the S3 or the big AoE from the BBK, and it kills. So as you can see, this is one of the few teams that I ended up using specifically to clear out the Harsetti team. And let me be clear, well, I think Harsetti is very good in terms of being on Arena, and as you could tell, a lot of other players think that she is also really, really OP. But I do want to explain that, of course, this isn't only just a Harsetti Arena video. That's not the point of this video. The point of today's video is to talk about whether it's worth it to pull for her. And the honest truth is that if I just had to say based off of what I've been seeing right now, there is literally no character in the game that has been used nearly as much or nearly as extensively as Harsetti. The truth is that she's so flexible. She has a lot of different angles to be played and different builds that you can use her on. And if you want the real truth, if you're someone that is playing E7 right now, there's no way you can skip for her. You have to pull for her. She is really game warping. She is very game changing. And even if you're a slow player, there are ways for you to use this character in any sorts of game modes. And now, again, you will probably have just seen what I've done with like the PvP and Arena, and you might be thinking to yourself, oh, well, Connor, I mean, you just beat a Harsetti defense. Isn't it solved? And the answer is no. No, really, it's not. Because if you don't have Harsetti on your team, what you end up having is an extremely Luna-able team. Now, I won't go too in-depth with that either, but if you don't have Harsetti in any content, I'm not joking, in nearly any content, and New Moon Luna for some reason is not caged up, or she isn't, banned behind some sort of composition, this is going to be the team that you see everywhere. If you aren't familiar with this team, as a brief explanation, everyone gets sealed with the New Moon Luna, who gets a free soul burn no matter what because of Frida. Frida is, on Bird's Eye View, the artifact that gives her souls, and that gives her enough souls for Flan to use her soul burn S3 and to S2, and Bloodblade Karin one-shots everything on a Death Broken team. New Moon Luna, to be clear, seals Bellion's passive, which is how you get the souls, in case if you're wondering if Bellion counters this. She doesn't. And even if you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe New Moon Luna is really slow, well, there's a variation of this that uses Vildred, which is a 12 speed imprint. Now, again, with all that in mind, I still think that although I would say that Harsetti is a character that most players will say is unskippable, you have equally as many people that are currently, and rightfully so, admitting that Harsetti feels very, very, very either bad to play or bad to play against. Now, that doesn't really sound like a character who's worth pulling for, and let me explain. The main reason why Harsetti right now feels bad to play is because if someone doesn't let you pick Harsetti, any character that you've tuned specifically to be Harsetti speed, i.e. like my Dragon Bride Senya or even my Death Dealer Ray, now you have a 124 base speed character who is going to get lapped by everyone in the game, and if anyone is faster than you or can punish you for being slow, well, now you have a dead pick. You literally have a 124 base speed Death Dealer Ray who's not going to do anything. However, that isn't to say that this is an indicator for whether Harsetti is worth or isn't worth pulling for, specifically because that is a kind of an issue that you have to kind of come across or kind of overcome yourself. Now, I'm not trying to say that this is like a skill issue. If you're bad with Harsetti, of course Harsetti's bad. This is literally an issue of whether or not in some cases you are either willing to or are comfortable with first picking Harsetti, or whether or not you're willing to have two of every single character, because that's the alternative. If you are someone that is willing to, let's say, pick for like the first two characters in RTA, be whatever, and then after you've guaranteed locked in Harsetti on your third pick, you pick two characters that are guaranteed slow, then guess what? In a lot of cases, yes, you're going to see great value from playing Harsetti, and you've just gotten free stats. But if you don't have two of every single team, or don't have every character doubled, well, Harsetti's going to feel worse because you're wasting stats. You're not getting the most out of this character, and the rumors are true. Harsetti sucks against slow characters. It's just factual. If you're able to ban out a character like Death Dealer Ray, or if you're able to ban out some of the other bigger threats, Harsetti in most cases is an injury bot and sometimes stuns. But that doesn't do anything for someone that's running someone like, I don't know, Destina, or if they're running Maid Chloe or Arya, characters like this, especially if you are trying to make your Harsetti versatile for all content. If you have a 300 effectiveness Harsetti in RTA and you're trying to play slow, I'm just going to use a team that has all like immunities, or I'm just going to use like hand guy, or I'm going to use like any cleanser, and then all of a sudden Harsetti has lost much more value, and she has probably low health too, because that's not how 300 effectiveness characters work. In any case, the point of today's video was to discuss whether or not Harsetti is worth pulling or not, and the truth is, well, the many truths are, it's up to you. If you want to pull for the character, that's fine, by all means. However, I think it is dishonest to say that she doesn't have clear weaknesses, because she does, but it's also very dishonest to say that she can't be way overtuned, and honestly, I'll say it, broken if in the right hands. If you are someone that has a lot of extra resources or extra copies of characters and you can build 2 of every single character in the game, this character is not fun or balanced to fight against, because suddenly everyone just has infinite gear score and infinite stats and aren't punished for it. But if you aren't someone that's in that position, even playing Harsetti is going to feel bad for you, unless if the enemy team is, I don't know, really oblivious to what you're trying to do and picks Cleave into a Harsetti comp. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. If you did, make sure to like, comment, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe. That's going to be it for this video. I will see you guys all next time. Thanks again for the feedback, for the responses, for the criticisms. And yeah, guys, sorry for the sometimes, have to explain myself sort of thing, but I just want to let you guys know that I am playing, and although sometimes my takes are bad, usually they're rooted in me just trying to give you the truth, not trying to scam you or clickbait you. That's just, people ask me questions and I make videos about them. Anyways, yeah, goodbye. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.